All right, amazing. How's everybody doing? All right. I'm Nick Grossman. I'm from Union Square Ventures. Um, and we're going to talk about decentralization as it relates to sustainability in this session. And let me click on this. All right, USV, we are a venture capital firm based here in New York City. We've been investing for 20 years this year as a firm. We're generalists across many sectors, from social media, marketplaces, developer tools, learning, health, crypto, a lot of decentralized systems generally. And we also currently are investing out of an early stage climate fund as well as an early stage generalist fund. And we talk about what we do as this, investing at the edge of large markets. So across every sector that we invest in, we try to do it the same way, which is we're looking for the edge and we're looking for a pressure that's pushing change at the edge. Maybe that sounds a little bit abstract, but it's enough that it helps us feel like we can invest across all these categories in kind of a consistent manner. And it has a lot to do with how we think about decentralization versus centralization as part of our work, which is kind of part of everything that we do. So we're investing across all these categories today, and we'll talk about kind of where decentralization and centralization fit into this thesis, but this idea of the edge is really important. So if we're investing in healthcare, we wouldn't invest in a electronic health record system that sells into hospitals directly, because that's too much down the middle. If we're looking to do something in learning, we're not selling to universities to get them to change from the middle. We're looking to do something from the edge. So something like Duolingo is learning at the edge. Portfolio company Nurix, which is has been acquired now, but is a consumer health product, lets people adopt it at the edge. Even in energy, which I'll talk about a little bit, we have an investment company called Radiant, which is micronuclear reactors. It's about as edge as you can get in energy production, or certainly in nuclear. But this idea of the edge is really important to us. We feel like the edge is where change happens. And we're always looking for a pressure that's going to push that change. And we want to be pushing a ball downhill wherever we can. So when talking about decentralization, I think, and unfortunately I wasn't here for the conversation this morning. I feel like we probably got into a lot of this, but I kind of don't think decentralization is the goal. I think that decentralization is a path to something else that maybe we care about. And this is just like a handful of things, but why do we care about decentralization? I think we care about it because it enables innovation and change and experimentation and competition. The more centralization you have, generally the more stasis you have in a market, but although that's not always true. Resilience is really important, especially as we think about climate and sustainability. I think trust is a really interesting concept as a component of decentralization. So I feel like we're trying to get to something with decentralization. And we think of decentralization as a very important tool, but it's not the only tool, and so it's just interesting to think about when it is and when it isn't as a path to get us to things I think we're trying to get to. And I think it's worth noting that they're also often in tension, and there are just direct trade-offs between decentralization and centralization along the pathway to get to some of the other things that we think maybe we're looking for. Just a couple of examples of this, the famous quote from Jim Barksdale: "Netscape is the only way to make money is to bundle and unbundle," right? So every sector, every category is in this constant rebundling, unbundling phase. And I think it's very time dependent on when there's opportunity in centralization and when there's opportunity in decentralization. I like this idea that centralization is fast and then slow, and decentralization is slow and then fast. If you think about like the iPhone versus Android, centralized, full stack, fast to market, you can experiment, you can get something done quickly. But an open system, a decentralized system like an Android, is more powerful and ultimately larger over time in the world, but it takes a lot longer to get there. I think an interesting tension is that sometimes full stack and centralized is the fastest path to innovation. Oftentimes early, when you're trying to create something new and you want to have full control of that new thing, and not be dependent on where you want freedom, right? Freedom to try something new. Sometimes being full stack is faster. And then sometimes like decentralized is the fastest path to innovation. Once I think a market and a system is more understood and you have standards, all of a sudden it opens the floodgates for everyone else to innovate on top, and you get this like crazy rapid innovation, but they're not, not at the same time. So that's kind of a tension. I think this one about trust is also really important. We spend a lot of time investing in the blockchain and crypto space, and a big part of the reason we do that is that it's a mechanism for creating digital ground truth and trust in digital assets, which is something that we need more and are going to need more than ever. There's a long-term path for that, creating a really important kind of trust. But in the meantime, most people don't trust that, and they do trust, Apple, for instance. And so there's sort of this trust in a centralized yet known entity. So I won't go through all of these, but I think it's really interesting to think about the tensions and the timelines. Another one that I'll call out here, because it relates to climate a lot, is about open standards being able to catalyze decentralized markets, but then also sometimes stifling them. One that we pay attention to a bit in climate is the carbon market, where you have standards bodies like Vera and the others who manage the standards for the voluntary carbon markets. You need those standards for an open, decentralized ecosystem to flourish and exist, but then sometimes you get calcification in the development and evolution of those standards. And I would say that parts of the carbon market are stuck because of the very standards bodies that enable them in the first place. And that's like an interesting tension that's related to climate. And then I guess just like really briefly, a couple of things that we're looking for at USV, among others, as investors and things that we're looking to invest in. We're spending a lot of time in decentralized energy production. So that's solar, nuclear, other forms of energy production at the edge. We've been spending a lot of time recently on what we think of as programmable energy, solid state breakers, power electronics, basically virtual power plants. Like you have a grid that's been a one-way grid forever. What's it going to take to turn that to be a multi-way grid and really enable decentralized value capture from energy assets? That's, I think, a very exciting form of decentralization that's happening in climate. I know there's generally like a history of beef between crypto people and climate people. I think that's going to go away over time as the crypto fundamentals become more useful for lots of different things, but we're already seeing places where there's an intersection. DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure, are these networks of assets that are getting deployed out into the world for many purposes using crypto incentives. There's a weather network called WeatherXM, which is scaling to be a large weather data collection network that could only exist because of crypto incentives. I think that's interesting. We've seen a bunch of crypto incentivized solar and other like climate friendly asset projects launching. Let's see, I think this idea of software to expand access to highly concentrated markets, I think that's another theme that we've been exploring a bunch recently. We have a company called Zanskar, which is using AI to help find locations for geothermal drilling at much lower cost. We've been looking at other opportunities to connect new technology to break open what were previously highly concentrated markets. And in general, we're always looking for technology opportunities that can empower small-scale producers and decentralize the means of production, if you will, and the economic benefits where that makes sense. So these are just a handful of themes that sit at decentralization and sustainability for us at USV. And that's probably been more than 5 minutes, so I'll just say thank you very much. Nick, it's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to talking more.